Good morning, my beautiful people. It's your girl, Dr. Shonna. Well, let's talk about Aruba. So as you sisters and brothers come on, say your good mornings. Let me know you're here, where you're tuning from. Share the video. And as always, like and follow me here on Dr. Shonna. Hey, how are you guys? So, listen, yesterday, let's talk about Aruba. I went to Aruba yesterday. And before we get into the deep stuff, let me just talk about the fun stuff. We rented a car. And we rented a car, we went into the town. The one thing I would say about, what's up, Beverly? Hi, Allison. How are you guys? The one thing I would say about Aruba is if you're going to rent a car, get a 4x4. Because if you go through the island and you travel the island, the terrain changes. And some of the terrain requires you to have a 4x4. Like we went to the natural pool. You could not get to the natural pool without a 4x4. It was a very interesting ride. But I loved Aruba in a sense as the island is very calm. So when you get off, you would notice that the people are really laid back. They're calm, and there's so many different nationalities of people in Aruba. So many different nationalities. But nonetheless, I was talking to these two guys. It was a very interesting conversation. I don't really like to lead people in a conversation. I just like to ask questions to see what they're going to tell me. Open-ended questions, no leading questions. So nonetheless, he was speaking about Americans. Very interesting conversation. He was speaking about Americans. What's up, Detosha? How are you doing? And he said that Americans are nasty. And I said, really? I said, well, when you say Americans, what do you mean? Because I'm American. And he said, no, I'm not talking about you. He said, I'm talking about white Americans. I said, really? Tell me more. He's like, they're nasty. They walk around, and the way they talk to people is as though they talk down to people. And I said, oh, okay. And I said, so when you say Americans, you got to let us know what you mean, because I am American. So he said, no, you're black. And I said, well, okay. I said, well, what are you? I just wanted to know what he was going to say. Y'all know I like to just pick people's brains, right? So I said, well, what are you? He said, I'm black too. Now, the reason why I say this is because so many of us in the States, we use this word black, right? And then when I say on my page so-called black, some people that don't understand the term so-called, they get their panties all in a bunch. They get upset. Instead of asking, what do you mean? Of course, they get upset. They get bothered, all this crazy stuff. When I say so-called, you have to understand that when you leave and you travel to different areas, black does not mean the same everywhere. It is something different everywhere. And in people, I always say this constantly, people get to define who they are, what they are. We don't get to do that for them. We may want to call somebody black, right? But we don't get to define who people are. They do that for themselves. And I know this is a concept that's hard for some people to be able to accept, but that is the truth. When you go to different areas, they all define differently. So this man, he says, I said to him, well, then what are you? If I'm black, what are you? He said, black. And I said, oh, okay. Now, if y'all know the Sudan people, they have a different type of feature, different kind of color, different type of feature. But at the end of the day, this is how the ones that I was speaking to, this is how they identify. So he says, yeah, they come in, the white Americans come in, they speak nasty to us. And I said, well, what about an island? I said, the island seems to be a very mixed island. How do the people treat each other on the island? And so he was like, well, you know, some people would say it's calm, it's good. And he said, but it's the same thing. You know who's nasty. He said, because in the island here, the whites here are from the Netherlands. They're from Holland. And I was like, oh, okay. And so he went on to say, they treat black and brown people nasty. So then I asked the guy, I said, well, who are the brown people? If I'm black and you're black, because he looked brown to me, right? who are the brown people? He comes out and he says, well, the Spanish are. I said, oh, okay. I got you. I'm paying attention. And I said, well, why do you bring that up? He said, because I'm just telling you the people that I like to do business with. He goes, I don't know, like how you and I, we just laughing, we're just talking. No matter what, I get this from everybody who are like us. We laugh, we talk, we have fun, we treat each other with respect. He was like, I can't say I get that from everybody. So then I turn around and I say to him, well, you're saying the brown people are the Spanish people, but are you talking about from Spain? That's what I need to understand. Or are you talking about from the other Caribbeans? He said the other Caribbeans. So he completely separated Spain from the other Caribbeans. That's important to know. Because when you go through the island of Aruba, I've met Colombians, I've met Haitians, I met Suriname people, I met other African Caribbean people, whether it's Jamaica, it doesn't matter. I met Dominicans. They're all different areas, different people on this island. One thing I don't like about the island is the disorganization. Yes, it's calm, cool, and collected, but the people are so calm and cool and collected that they're not structured or organized whatsoever. No structure, no organization. So there's no street sign. So she can't tell you take Main Street down to Park Street and make a left or make a right, because there are no street signs for the most part. And if they are, they're like in Dutch with long names to it that I can barely even pronounce. But there's no structure, there's no organization. Some of the cars, the wheels are on the right side. Some of them, the wheels are on the left side. It's just really an interesting island altogether. Very interesting island. So y'all know I went there, as I said in my previous video, I went there because I wanted to know about, I think the Dutch word is Zwarte Piet. I might be saying it wrong because y'all know I have an accent. So I don't know if it's Zwarte Piet, but what I told y'all yesterday is Black Pete, who was Saint Nick's helper. So I spoke to several people there, quite a few people. And what's so interesting about the island, and then I'm going to get on to Curacao, what is so interesting about the island is most of the people, they celebrate Black Pete. It doesn't matter if they're black, they're brown, they're white. It doesn't matter. They celebrate Black Pete. They understand the story behind Black Pete. When I'm speaking to as the guy said in his term, the brown people, who I was speaking to somebody who was from Venezuela. A lot of Venezuelans are there, a lot of them. But when I was speaking to the girl from Venezuela, she said it wasn't a big deal for her. This is important why I'm telling you guys this. For her, it wasn't a big deal. When I asked her about the history, she gave me the generic textbook narrative of Black Pete. When I started to tell her who Black Pete was, she knew. She said, yeah, that's true. But she didn't automatically tell me that Black Pete was an enslaved Moor who was helping Saint Nick by, well, I don't want to say the helper. He was a servant. He was a slave and he was a servant to Saint Nick, and he was carrying the gifts. She explained the whip that they talk about, the whip that he used to beat the bad kids was from a coconut. And she was like, when you pull the coconut off, it leaves like these like string type of things. And she said that's what he used to carry around. And he would beat the bad kids and put them in his knapsack to kidnap them to take them back to Spain. So all the bad kids that were not following direction got beaten, put in his bag, taken to Spain. That is the folktale. That is the narrative. But she downplayed a lot of the other sides. Good morning, Ina. Good morning, Ronnie. Good morning, David. How are you guys doing? She downplayed the other side of it. She didn't want to talk about what the actual narrative is until I started to speak on it. Then she was like, well, yeah. And it was like sort of downplayed. And I said, well, what do you think about Saint Nick? Black Pete. Does everybody celebrate Black Pete? Here's what she said. And I'm going to tell you some other people what they said, and then I'm going to move on to Curacao. She said, everybody used to celebrate Black Pete. And I said, what do you mean used to? She said, well, in the last couple of years, there's been a lot of controversy on black people. There's been a lot of controversy, and some people, they find it offensive. And I said, who are the some people? Of course, she looked at me, she fixed the posture, she giggled, and it was that nervous giggle. It wasn't like, haha, let me laugh in your face, because I'm not that kind of person that people just laugh in my face. They can tell when they approach me, I ain't playing those kind of games with you. So she laughs, like from her nervous laugh. And I said, well, who are the people? And she said, well, some of the people. And I said, some of the people like who? Are you saying some of the people that look like me? And she was like, well, yeah, some of the people. And I said, some of the black people? So she was like, yeah, they don't want to celebrate Black Pete. So why do you think that is? Now, I know why that is, because I'm a researcher. I know what it is. But I said to her, why do you think that is? She said, I don't know. It's because over in the Netherlands, has been a lot of controversy around Black Pete, and people are protesting, and they're fighting against the holiday. And whatever happens over there, it eventually makes its way over here. And she says, so since it happened there, now people here are upset. And now it's becoming a problem. But I don't see why that has to be the case, because we've been celebrating this for about 100 years. So why is it a problem now? Let me stop right there. And the reason why I said I use her narrative is because her narrative has so much weight to what I see happening around the globe as it relates to our people. Her narrative has so much weight because what her and people like her don't understand is when you erase somebody's culture, when you erase somebody's history, and when you get to tell the story, when you get to be the one who dictates how the story go, what you're going to put in, what you're going to take out, and what you're going to feed, most importantly, to the children. That's why I always tell you all, educate your children. Because if you don't educate your children, someone will do it. So it's either they're going to have the narrative that you have given them, or they're going to believe others over your story. So we have to keep on, yes, Donna, we have to keep on fighting to the end. And most importantly, we have to keep on educating our children. And the reason why I say that is because we're going to run across people who are not going to share the same narrative. People that may look like you, people may look like me, they're not going to share the same narrative. I ran into those people yesterday in Aruba, asking them about it. They're saying, oh, it's no big deal. That's what we do. I mean, yeah, he was a slave. Yeah, we know the story. Yeah, blackface is offensive. But blackface is offensive in America. It's offensive in the States. This is what some of them would say. And these are people that look like us. They're offensive in the States. But when I started to speak to them about history and ask them other questions about history and what they know, they don't know. They would say, oh yeah, I heard something like that, but they don't know the story of it. They don't know the narrative. They only know what has been given to them in their textbook. But I just wanted to say that when you have an understanding of the Caribbean culture and how many of them identify with whiteness, and I'm not talking about the color of the skin, I'm talking about the mindset. When they identify with whiteness, you will have a better understanding why you might meet some of them who push back on what you have to say. They don't want to hear your history. They don't want to know about this revolutionary thing that's happening. They don't want to be a part of the awakening. They don't want to be a part of the changing of the narrative. They're comfortable right where they're at. Right? So Lisa saying she missed something, and Eugenia saying I was talking about being blunt. Okay, so let me say that again. I was speaking about being blunt, and then I went on to say that I have to say some things right now that it might offend some people, but it's not my intent to offend anybody, but I gotta just say what it is. And when you go to a lot of these Caribbean islands and you'll have a better understanding when you're in the States why a lot of Caribbeans might not want to join you in your revolution. They may not want to join you in fighting against the dominant culture and oppressive forces and changing inaccurate histories and putting light to the truth about what happened, that they know what happened because they have it in their research, but they're not releasing it to the public. All of this stuff is intentional. This is intentional because they understand when you release this information, when you give people the truth, they are empowered. And when people are empowered, changes happen. And so they're trying to suppress the information as much as possible to prevent any revolutionary tactics, right? And so when you go to these Caribbean islands, and it's not uncommon to find people who are not even interested in hearing about the history. They don't want to know. They say that stuff happened in the past. It's beyond us. Move past that. Why you want to keep bringing up that? There's good people and bad people in white. There's good people and bad people in black. Everyone is what you make of it. This is what they would say, right? This is what you make of it. I choose not to talk about that stuff. I tell my children you love everybody because a lot of them are conditioned and brainwashed, especially when it comes to religion. Some Caribbean people are ultra religious people. If I'm lying, I got a lot of Caribbeans on here. If I'm lying, y'all let me know. Let me know. A lot of them are some ultra religious people, and I see a lot of them that have like white Jesuses on their wall and shit. I'm not lying to you guys. I'll be looking like, what the a lot of them are Catholics as well, are Pentecostal. Oh my gosh. And they have these thought processes, right? And these belief systems that keep them in bondage. It keeps them oppressed, and they don't even see it. They still waiting on a God, the white God, to come and get them, right? They ain't gonna take no action. They're gonna wait on the white God to come and make the change for them. And it's the craziest thing in life for me to even comprehend. I listen without judgment, but in the back of my head, I'm like, that shit don't make sense. It's not even logical. But you can't even reason with them in a logical sense, because you're asking them to go against what they've been conditioned to believe. You're asking them to change their viewpoint and to adopt something new, and that's very uncomfortable for a lot of the Caribbeans that have met, not only on their islands but in the States. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of them because they have become so ingrained and conditioned with whiteness that they have not changed their mindset, and their histories are right in front of their faces, but they really don't learn about the history. Now I'm going to show you what I mean. Before we left, I engaged in a big conversation with someone, and the person didn't know about Black Pete. The person didn't know about Tula. I'm about to talk about Tula, and then I'm out of here. They didn't know about a lot of that stuff. So I was educating the person on it, and they said, well, what you are, some type of historian or something? I said, no, I'm not a historian. I'm a scholar. I'm a clinical scholar, a social work clinical scholar, and I study people. This is what I do. I go out and I have an understanding why certain mindsets are formed and certain belief systems are formed, coupled with disorders and coupled with other stuff, right? I try to get an understanding of what this means and how some people might be set up culturally to do certain things. And they were like taken back. Now, here you are, part of the ABC Islands, Aruba, Bonaire, Curacao, even though the order is different. The order is Aruba, Curacao, Bonaire, but it wouldn't sound good to say ACB Islands, right? ABC Islands sounds better. But here you are, rich with history, and you don't even know it. You don't even know it. You hear some stories about it, but you don't even talk about it. Why? Because when I ask them about their educational systems, many of it is not even in their books. It's not even in their educational books. And the educational system is nothing like ours. So it's kind of crazy. They're not thinking about this kind of stuff. They're not thinking about this kind of stuff. They're really like laid back. They don't want to deal with anything. So when I think about the Caribbeans that I deal with in the States, it makes a lot of sense to me why they're all laid back and don't want to do anything because the culture is that. That's how they have been engineered and cultured to behave. It's crazy. So here I am on the island of Curacao. I'm going to say this, I'm going to get out my gym clothes, and I'm going to go head on to the island. As y'all can see, I worked out today too. Boom. 2 more days and I hit my day 5. Even on vacation, I played no games, y'all. I already dropped 10 pounds. I ain't playing no games. But nonetheless, so here it is. We're going to rent a car here too, and we're going to go through the town, and I want to, as much as possible, trace Tula's history. Some of us don't know who Tula is. Some of us do. Teresa saying, I didn't know about Black Pete either. Thanks for the information. Okay, you're welcome. William says that's most people in the Christian church today. Absolutely. Curtis, who was Yolanda, saying, wow, they said this is what you make it of it. Yes, you are so right. Yeah, they do. They do say that. So here's Tula. Tula was revolutionary in Curacao. The reason why you don't see as many of us of African descent on the island of Aruba is because enslavement was not a big thing on Aruba, right? There may have been some people who had enslaved Africans, but it wasn't like their economy per se, right? Everything is politically tied into, and the economy is tied into politics. It was there, yes, that's the spelling, Donna, T-U-L-A, Tula. It wasn't as big there, but Curacao was a holding port for selling and trading of enslaved Africans over in Curacao. So that's where you had people toiling the land, working the land, building, trying to produce crops. And the reason I say trying to produce is because they killed the land through plantation. They killed the land of all of its resources. And then when the resources were dried up, they picked up and they left. Pretty much, that's how it happened. And that's in the nutshell. I'm giving you guys a real condensed version. You have to have more of an understanding politically what was really happening, because there was a war happening. The French and the Dutch and all these people were fighting. It was a lot more that went into it. But I want you guys to think of Tula, and I want you guys to think of 1795. And we have to understand these names in the framework of 1795. And the reason why I'm saying the framework, because some of us now in the 21st century with our revolutionary tactics and what we're doing now, we always want to call on the history, which we should, but we cannot do as they did in the 18th century, because times were different then. And that's why I say within the framework, our battle has to be different. Our fight has to be different. And I'll get into that some other time. But I just want to put that out there. Our battle and our fight has to be different because a lot in the world has shifted. So we have to be ready with 21st century strategies, 21st century tactics. We have to be ready in a different way. Right, and you need the dollar. You need the dollar. And although some people look at me like, okay, she seems to be about her money, that I am. I absolutely am. You need money to fund your quote unquote war. You need money to do it. You need money to do it. This is how this world has been just built, and we're not going to get around it. So as long as we kumbaya and we think that we're gonna go back to bartering and changing our cows and our corn for cars, we're stupid. That's never going to happen. But I need you to know about 1795 and its framework. If you study the Caribbean islands, you will see that there were other islands at the same time that was going through uproars, revolts, right? And what happened was, I believe it was in Martinique and Guadeloupe, if I'm not mistaken. Y'all gonna have to do your research. I don't have any of my documents in front of me, my books, my notes, my papers. I don't have anything in front of me. But I believe that Martinique and Guadeloupe, there was a French man there who was preparing for war. And what he did was he had trained some of the blacks that he had with them to fight war. And so he was teaching them a lot of the revolutionary stuff, right? So you already know how we do, right? That's the whole idea of the concept of spook that sat by the door. And this is where I want us to be. Like, if you're going to be we have no choices to be in white spaces, right? That's going to happen. If you're going to work in white spaces, and I pray to God that that's not never a space I have to work in, per se, right? But if you're going to work in white spaces, you got to be the spook by the door. You have to be the person who's there listening and information and bringing it back, because that what was happening in 1795. They was listening to the information, and then the way our news travel. I mean, the internet is great, but we were the start of the damn internet. If you want to be honest with, if you want to be honest with it, we was the start of it. Because as somebody may be working in the house, and we already know these stories, and they hearing what's going on, they will go back into the slave quarters and tell them there, and then that would spread, and it would go from town to town, or parish to parish, to island, and so they already knew that these Africans were being trained in warfare, because the Frenchman was preparing in Guadeloupe and Martinique, preparing for war. So he trained them well, and he traveled with these black people, and they helped him to fight in the war. That got back. And then what used to be happening when they say Freeport, right? So there was free blacks that would move about from different islands because they was working with the white people. And when I say working with them, of course, not equal, but they weren't enslaved, because they had to be able to move about. And then another uniqueness about Caribbean slavery is there were also some enslaved Africans that was able to move about, because that was their role, that was their title, that was assigned to them by their slave master. So the slave master, naive into believing that their slaves would be loyal to them, and they were moving about, passing off information, delivering stuff, picking up stuff, bringing stuff back. So as they would get to the next location, they would tell the slaves at that location, this is what's happening. This is what they're fighting this, they're fighting that. Oh, they learn that a guy is going to come through. He's scheduled to be here and so time. So they would come through and they would meet, and then he would teach them revolutionary tactics. Right? So they all knew these kind of things, how information was being picked up, how information was being delivered, and they would be preparing and training and waiting for this. So 1795 was no accident. It was no accident how this revolution came about. It was more like, it is time now for us to strike, and that's who Tula was. So before there was a Nat Turner, and you know our beloved Nat Turner, we say fists up to Nat Turner. Before there was a Nat Turner, there was a Tula. And we have to understand how this information came about, because if you let people tell you the story, they'll tell you lies. They'll have you believing that we were some good old black people that just didn't say nothing. We didn't do nothing. We didn't fight back, and we was just having a happy time. That is not the case. And I hate when I hear those narratives when people are saying, oh, they were slaves because they wanted to be slaves. They could have fought back. They outnumbered. There was revolutionary revolts happening all over the place. All over the place. So to have that, when I hear some of our people say that, I can tell who's learned and who's unlearned. That's one of the most ignorant statements I've ever heard in my life. And what's so sad about Curacao is it wasn't until 10, 15 years ago, and y'all don't believe me, fact check it. It wasn't until 10, 15 years ago where the government here not only acknowledged Tula, but started to add it in the history books, or add it in the museum, erected statues. That's crazy to me. So 10, 15 years ago, we're talking about the 21st century. We were in the 21st century. This happened in 1795. So the reason why I'm saying that, and then I'm out, the reason why I'm saying that is because they want to hold back this information. They hold back this information. You have to ask yourself, why? I always say that people who have been in this page for a long time, y'all know my favorite question is why. And it's unfortunate because I get the new people that come to this page and they will make comments, and I will come on to their comment and I will ask why. The question is why? Why now? And they'll get so upset about me asking questions and, come off and start calling me names and stupid shit, and I'll just delete them. Y'all know how I am. That negative energy. If you can't stand somebody's asking you questions, why? Because you can't engage in discourse, intelligent discourse, and something is wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with me. You can ask me why, and I'm going to engage in discourse with you, intelligent discourse. I'm not going to get mad and start calling you names because you ask questions. The reason why I bring up is because that is the conditioning and the programming that we have seen other people. So when we ask why of certain people, and y'all know what I'm talking about, and we ask why of certain people, they get flustered, they get upset, they feel that we're being disrespectful, we're challenging their authority when you ask why. And that's why I always tell you, sisters and brothers, sit back and just ask why. Just ask why. That's it. Don't engage in arguments. Don't engage in disputes. Don't get yourself so upset that you want to fight. Just ask why. And watch how people unravel. Watch how they get so emotional and they fall apart because they don't like that question. So the people in Curacao have been asking why. Why aren't we being taught about Tula? Why isn't there a statue to Tula? Why isn't there a museum? And they started asking why. And they started to push back. And they started to fight against the regime. And they started to fight against the suppression of information and the oppression of their people. They started to fight back. So when you come to the island of Curacao, they have that revolutionary spirit. And when I was talking about Black Pete, it's not going down in Curacao like that. Like, they fighting against this every day. They do have that spirit here. And that's why I can't wait to get off this feed and get onto the island, rent my car, go around, talk to the people, meet people, because a lot of them do have that spirit. I've been following a few researchers that are Suriname. They're from Suriname, and they have fought the government and put in the history correct, and putting the museums up and putting the statues up. And this is why we have to be able to do this. And I want to say to my sisters and brothers, if you know your history and you know what works, what doesn't work, you will also know that we have to stop being so emotional and so reactive without a strategy. We have a lot of emotional, reactive people in our community with no strategy, no organization, no tools, no resources, no skills. They're just emotionally angry, and they're just acting out, blurting out, cussing out all types of people. They're cussing out their people, they're cussing out other people, they're cussing out everybody because they're so angry. You want to make a change? You make a change by first knowing your history. Then you make a change by staying on the government's ass, and you're constantly demanding that they make changes. You're constantly doing it. And then your body, you organize your people and you swell it up. You grow the numbers, and you constantly out doing it. You're constantly speaking out. You got to constantly speak out on social media. You got to constantly speak out at your board meetings. You got to go to your board meetings. You got to go to your board meetings in your towns. You got to go to your school board meetings. If you could sit on the board of the hospitals or go to their meetings, go to the meetings in the hospitals. You got to go to meetings, and you got to constantly challenge these people. Because if you don't challenge them, they're not going to change anything, right? And if you don't bring the history, the research, and the facts, nothing is going to change. If you come out of emotions, they're just going to look at you as emotional people. They need to calm the hell on down, and they ain't going to do nothing differently but put their foot on your neck. Lock your asses up, shoot you down. That's all they're going to do. So you do have to come at this differently. And I understand that we all have different roles to play. Everybody has a different role. Everybody has a different gift. Everybody has a different talent. When you come to an island like Curacao, when you go to an island like Haiti, and you know about the history, you know about it, you meet the people, and you see how they strategically, well, not all of them, I don't want you to think I'm talking about all of them. I'm talking about the revolutionaries. When you see how they strategically meet together and they work together, they put aside differences for a greater cause. And we have to be able to do that. We have to be able to put aside our differences, is because with every revolution, it required the people to work together. With every uprising, it required the people to work together. With every systematic change, it requires the people to work together. When there is division, that is not possible. So we have to be able to put aside petty differences. Who's dating who? Who's sleeping with who? who likes who. Like, these are stupid differences that we have to put aside. Who's black enough? Who's not black enough? These are the stupid shit that we have to be able to put aside, because those things are even more divisions that keep us divided, right? We can support each other in the individual causes, and we need to be able to monitor the words that we say when we're speaking of some of our sisters and brothers. Of course, there's some of us that need to be put on blast. Some of us need to be thrown over the ship, right? Some of us need to be ignored, lock the motherfuckers up, put them under the bridge, whatever they're doing. Some people just ain't worthy of the war. Some people just, they're distractions. They would throw us off kilter. Some people just need to be, put in a box. Put in a box. And I don't mean killed, not in that way. But you know what I mean? Some people just need to be put in a box, shut them up. Get them on out. Get them on out. But there's a lot of us who are just ignorant because we just don't know, right? And I'm not saying ignorant in a negative context. We just don't know. Those people I can work with because they can be taught. If you speak on something long enough, consistently, persistently, the mindset will shift. The mindset will shift. So I can work with the ignorant. What I cannot work with are the nasty, negative, vile people among us that are interrupting what is being done, are trying to distract and interrupt what is being done. Who I cannot work with are people who are just simply angry just to be angry, hypocritical and angry, and they want to hate everybody. I cannot work with that. I cannot work with hate of no cause. I can't work with people that hate their own people. I cannot work with people that hate everybody else. I cannot work with hate. And the reason why I say that is because hate is a negative energy. It's a negative energy, and it will take hold. And negative energies are very distracting, very distracting. It throws you off kilter, off course, and it will cause you to make a lot of mistakes. So I cannot work with that. I can work with disagreements. I can work with differences. I can work with ignorance. I can work with different belief systems as long as we have the same goal, the same focus. I can work with that. I can work with that. All that other negative energy, I cannot. Kumbayaing, I cannot. Cooning, I cannot. If you was an ex-coon, I understand, because we all were. But well, not we all, but a lot of us were. But if you ain't in recovery and you still cooning, I cannot. I just cannot. But that's where I'm at today. I'm going over onto the island, and I will let you guys know what I find out. If you have any questions that you want me to ask the people that I come in contact with to get their opinions on it, their understanding, just go ahead and inbox me. Write the message. You're able to send me a message on this page. I need you guys to inbox me, because if I don't get the messages before I get off this ship, so y'all have about an hour. I should be off the ship in an hour, because I take a long time to get dressed and dolled up. But y'all have an hour to write me any questions y'all want me to ask the people, and I would. I haven't thought about my question I'm aiming to answer today. Yesterday was about Black Pete. Today is going to be focused on Tula. I guess I want to know how many people actually know about his history and know about him. How many people are for the revolutionary? So the revolution. I guess that's going to be my focus today. I got to frame it in a better question so I can get some better answers to it. But that's my mindset. That's my mindset. So all of my beloved sisters and brothers out there, y'all have a beautiful day. I love each and every one of you guys. Be blessed. Don't forget to get me those questions that you want me to ask. If you have any questions you want me to ask, enjoy your day. Share the video, and I will see you guys back on my next live, hopefully today. Yesterday, I'm sorry, I went to sleep. I was exhausted after getting bit in the damn ocean by some damn fish. I was exhausted. But yeah, I'm hoping I can come back on today. Love you guys. Much respect to every last one of you guys. I love every last one of y'all. Be blessed. Peace and blessings.